Ladies and gentlemen, there's a kind of silence that confuses people. No calls, no messages, no good morning, no good night, nothing. And you start thinking, maybe they forgot about me. But let me tell you something. Just because there's no text doesn't mean there's no thought. See, people assume attention only exists when it's loud, when it's obvious, when it's constant. But some of the deepest feelings don't come with notifications. They come in quiet moments when your name crosses their mind out of nowhere. When something reminds them of you and they just sit there thinking, replaying, feeling. Silence has a way of playing tricks on your mind. When there's no message, no call, no sign of effort, the first thing you start believing is that the feeling must be gone. You start questioning everything. What you said, what you did, where it went wrong, because in today's world, we've been conditioned to measure interest by visibility. If it's real, it must be loud. If it's there, it must be shown. But that's not always the truth. Just because someone isn't reaching out doesn't automatically mean you've disappeared from their thoughts. People carry emotions in different ways. Some express, some suppress, and some simply don't know how to turn what they feel into something you can see. Silence, in many cases, is not emptiness. It's unspoken tension, internal conflict, hesitation. It's someone sitting with feelings they don't fully understand or don't know how to communicate. There are moments when a person can think about you constantly and still not type a single word, not because you don't matter, but because something inside them holds them back. Pride can do that. Fear can do that. The fear of being ignored, the fear of saying too much, or even the fear of realizing how deeply they feel. So instead of risking it, they choose silence. And from the outside, it looks like absence, like distance, like they've moved on. But silence isn't always clean or simple. Sometimes it's loud inside their head. It's overthinking every conversation you've ever had, replaying your words, wondering what you meant, wondering if they should reach out or stay quiet. It's picking up the phone and putting it back down. It's typing a message and deleting it before sending. You don't see that part, so all you feel is the quiet, and the quiet starts to feel like rejection. The problem is silence leaves too much room for assumptions. You fill in the gaps with your insecurities, and suddenly their quiet becomes your self-doubt. You start believing that if they cared, they would show it. And while that sounds logical, human emotions aren't always that straightforward. People are complicated, and their way of handling feelings isn't always aligned with what you need to feel secure. So while silence doesn't always mean the absence of feelings, it also doesn't give you clarity. And without clarity, you're left trying to interpret something that was never clearly expressed in the first place. Obsession isn't always loud, and that's what makes it so confusing. People expect obsession to come with constant messages, late-night calls, endless attention. They imagine someone who can't stay away, someone who shows up again and again without hesitation. But in reality, obsession doesn't always look like that. Sometimes it hides behind distance. Sometimes it exists without a single word being said. A person can be deeply fixated on you and still never reach out. That sounds contradictory, but it happens more often than people realize. Because obsession lives in the mind before it ever shows up in actions. It's in the way they think about you when they're alone, the way your presence lingers in their thoughts, even when you're not around. You become a constant in their head, something they can't easily turn off, no matter how busy they are or how hard they try to distract themselves. But here's where it gets complicated. Just because someone feels something intensely doesn't mean they're ready to express it. Obsession can come with fear of rejection, fear of vulnerability, fear of losing control. When feelings get that strong, they don't always push a person forward. Sometimes they freeze them. Instead of acting, they hesitate. Instead of reaching out, they watch from a distance. Instead of speaking, they stay silent and let their thoughts do all the work. There are people who will check your profile, revisit your conversations, remember small details about you, and still never send a message. Not because they don't care, but because they're stuck in their own deha. Overanalyzing, overthinking, questioning every possible outcome. They want to say something, but they don't know how it will be received. They want to get closer, but they are afraid of what that closest might bring. And sometimes obsession isn't healthy or stable. It can be messy, confusing, even inconsistent. One moment they feel pulled towards you, the next moment they pull themselves away, trying to regain control over their emotions. That push and pull creates distance. Even though the feeling itself hasn't gone anywhere, from the outside, it looks like indifference. It looks like they have moved on, like they don't think about you at all. But inside, it can be the opposite. You can live in someone's mind without existing in their actions, and that's what makes it so hard to understand, because you're trying to measure something real using something visible, and not all real things are visible. Deep feelings have a way of fooling people into thinking they automatically lead to meaningful actions, but that's not how human behavior works. Someone can feel something intense, something real, something that keeps them up at night, and still do absolutely nothing about it. Emotions and actions don't always move together. In fact, sometimes the stronger the feeling, the more complicated the response becomes. You might believe that if it's real, it will show, that if someone truly cares, they'll make it obvious. And in a perfect world, that would be true. But people aren't perfect, and neither is the way they handle what they feel. Some people were never taught how to express emotions. Some learn to hide them to protect themselves, to avoid rejection or vulnerability. So even when something genuine grows inside them, they don't have the tools to translate that into effort. There are people who will think about you constantly, who feel a strong emotional pull toward you. But when it comes to action, they hesitate. They second guess themselves. They question whether they're enough, whether you feel the same, whether it's worth the risk. And in that hesitation, time passes. Opportunities fade. What could have been something real stays stuck as a feeling that never fully formed into reality. Sometimes it's not just fear, it's also comfort. Feeling something doesn't require courage, but acting on it does. It's easier to stay in your own head, to imagine conversations, to hold on to the idea of someone than it is to step forward and face the possibility of rejection. So they choose the safer option. They fey everything, but they do nothing. And from your perspective, it creates confusion because you sense something. You feel that there's a connection, that there's something deeper beneath the surface, but their actions don't match that energy. Their silence contradicts what you feel, and you're left trying to understand how something that feels so strong can look so absent. The truth is, feelings alone are not enough to build anything real. They are the starting point, not the proof. What matters is what someone does with those feelings, whether they take the risk, whether they show up, whether they turn emotion into effort. Because without action, even the deepest feelings remain invisible, existing only inside one person's world. Without ever reaching the other, you can't build something real on guesswork. You can't feel secure in something that only exists in hidden thoughts, mixed signals, or occasional glimpses of attention. At some point, you have to stop asking what they feel and start looking at what they actually do. Because no matter how deep or intense someone's emotions might be, if those emotions never reach you in a clear and consistent way, they don't create anything you can stand on. It's easy to romanticize the idea that someone is secretly thinking about you all the time, that they care more than they show, that their silence hides something meaningful. But the truth is, hidden emotions don't meet your needs. You don't experience what's in their mind, you experience what they choose to express. And if what they express is confusion, inconsistency, or absence, then that's the reality you're dealing with, no matter what might be happening behind the scenes. You deserve effort that you don't have to question. You deserve communication that doesn't leave you overanalyzing every pause, every delay, every mixed signal. Real effort is clear. It doesn't make you feel like you're asking for too much just because you want consistency. It doesn't make you feel like you have to decode someone's behavior to understand where you stand. When someone truly values you in a healthy and grounded way, their actions reflect that without forcing you into uncertainty. There's a difference between someone who feels something and someone who shows up for you. Showing up requires intention. It requires choosing you, not just thinking about you. It requires stepping out of comfort, putting pride aside, and making the effort visible. And if someone isn't willing to do that, then what they feel, no matter how strong, stays incomplete. Holding on to hidden emotions can keep you stuck. You start waiting, hoping that one day they'll express what you believe is already there. But waiting for potential can cost you time, energy, and peace. Because while you're trying to hold on to something uncertain, you might be ignoring what you actually need: clarity, stability, and real presence. At the end of the day, you're not asking for too much. By wanting effort you can see and feel, you're asking for something real, something grounded, something that exists not just in someone's mind, but in the way they show up in your life consistently.